India and Pakistan could accidentally start World War III. But how? Imagine waking up to news that nuclear war has just begun. A conflict so devastating that it threatens to pull the entire world into chaos. But what if I told you that this war could start not between superpowers like the US and Russia, but between two neighboring rivals, India and Pakistan? Two nations with a long history of hostility, both armed with nuclear weapons, both sitting on a power keg that could ignite at any moment. How could a border skirmish or a misunderstanding spiral into World War III? Let's dive into history, the present tensions, and the terrifying possibilities that could shape our future. To understand why India and Pakistan remain at constant odds, we must go back to a defining moment in history, 1947, the year the British Empire withdrew from the Indian subcontinent. But this was no ordinary transition of power. It was a chaotic exit, one that left a deep and bloody scar on the region. As British rule ended, the region was carved into two new nations, Hindu majority India and Muslim majority Pakistan. The decision, fueled by religious and political divides, was meant to bring peace. Instead, it ignited one of the largest and deadliest mass migrations in history. More than 15 million people were forced to leave behind their homes and sometimes even their loved ones. The scars of partition remain fresh even today. Borders were drawn, but the wounds ran deeper than any line on a map. Generations grew up with stories of loss, betrayal, and revenge, fueling a cycle of mistrust that has lasted for more than 75 years. Mahatma Gandhi once said, "An eye for an eye only make the whole world blind." But in the case of India and Pakistan, revenge, suspicion, and hostility have become the foundation of their relationship. Three wars, countless skirmishes, and a nuclear arms race later, the animosity continues. From the disputed territory of Kashmir to the ghosts of 1947 still shape South Asia's destiny. At the heart of this animosity is Kashmir, a region nestled in the Himalayas, claimed by both India and Pakistan, but fully controlled by neither. Since the partition of British India in 1947, Kashmir has remained a bone of contention, fueling decades of hostility, political tensions, and bloodshed. The two nations have fought three full-scale wars over it: 1947, 1965, and 1999, each leaving behind deep scars and unresolved grievances. One of the most intense conflicts erupted in 1999 during the Kargil War, when Pakistani soldiers and militants infiltrated Indian territory, seizing key strategic positions in the mountains. The battle lasted nearly 3 months, with thousands of soldiers killed. At the time, US President Bill Clinton described South Asia as the most dangerous place in the world, fearing that nuclear escalation could turn the crisis into a global catastrophe. Even today, Kashmir remains a powder keg. Armed skirmishes along the line of control are frequent, and any incident can rapidly spiral into a major confrontation. But amid the geopolitical chess game, it is the people of Kashmir who suffer the most. Decades of insurgency, crackdowns, and unrest have left thousands dead. Entire generations have grown up under the shadow of barbed wire and military patrols, caught between the ambitions of two nuclear-armed nations. Civilians live in a constant state of fear, while political leaders on both sides debate their future without their input. Will Kashmir ever see peace? Or is this dispute destined to end in catastrophe. In 1998, the world watched in stunned silence as two of its most bitter rivals, India and Pakistan, crossed the nuclear threshold. Within weeks of each other, both nations conducted underground nuclear tests, officially becoming nuclear-armed states. The stakes had never been higher. A single miscalculation, a single misstep could ignite a full-scale nuclear war. Military analysts warned that if India and Pakistan were ever to engage in a full-scale nuclear exchange, the immediate impact would be devastating. More than 100 million people could perish in minutes. But the horror would not stop there. Entire cities would be reduced to radioactive ruins. Millions more would suffer from third-degree burns, blindness, and lethal doses of radiation. And then comes the aftermath, nuclear winter. The immense fires from the explosions would inject soot and ash into the stratosphere, blocking sunlight for months or even years. Crops would fail, temperatures would plummet, and famine would grip the planet. And of course, the economic consequences would be just as catastrophic. The collapse of global markets, disruption of supply chains, and the inevitable refugee crisis would send shockwaves through the world. No nation would be spared from the fallout. As former U.S. Secretary of State Henry Kissinger once said, the absence of catastrophe is not the absence of peace. And in the case of India and Pakistan, this rings terrifyingly true. Even in times of relative calm, the specter of nuclear war looms. It could begin with a single spark, an event so small, yet so explosive, that ignites a global inferno. A border skirmish between two armed rivals, a military jet mistakenly shot down, or even a cyber attack misinterpreted as an act of war. With tensions already high, nations on hair trigger alert, and military doctrines built on rapid response, any of these scenarios could spiral into catastrophe. In South Asia, India and Pakistan have fought multiple wars, but with nuclear weapons in their arsenals, their next war could be their last. In Eastern Europe, NATO and Russia engage in dangerous brinkmanship, each move calculated yet fraught with risk. In the Pacific, an incident in the South China Sea or the Taiwan Strait could drag the US and China into open conflict. The world stands on a precarious edge, where one miscalculation could tip the balance toward all-out war. Could diplomacy pull the world back from the brink? Could world leaders de-escalate before it's too late? Or are we simply waiting for the inevitable? Despite all the tensions, war is not inevitable. Diplomacy, economic ties, and people-to-people connections offer hope. Both countries have a shared history, similar cultures, and a deep love for cricket, Bollywood, and food. Could these commonalities pave the way for peace? As Nelson Mandela once said, it always seems impossible until it's done. Could peace between India and Pakistan ever be achieved? India and Pakistan stand at a dangerous crossroads. History has shown us how small conflicts can spiral into global conflicts. Are we prepared to let history repeat itself? Or can we learn from the past and prevent catastrophe before it's too late? The choice is ours.